This is giving me Charlie Cole vibes. If you know, you know. Imagine being told that what you're saying is offensive just to continue saying it and then feigning ignorance.
Just ignore the Islamophobic nasty witch. Yeah, I know. People are like trying to get me off of YouTube by saying I'm like being anti-Semitic when I say goblin. It's not because she's Jewish, it's because she looks like a goblin and she's like a monster. I didn't even know that. Like, if you Google goblin and you even go to the Wikipedia page, it said it's a mythical creature. There's nothing about anything about Jewish people in that. They're just reaching. But yeah, certain someone is like trying to get me off of YouTube, and they're like still doing videos for free.
According to Chantal Wikipedia, any normal person would say, "Sorry, I didn't know. I'll stop using it." But not Foodie. She double, triple, quadruple down and uses semantics to excuse her behavior. Also, what was that mouth movement when she put food in her mouth? Ugh. See, that's what gets me. If she did it once, okay, maybe it's just lack of knowledge. But to keep doing it, yeah, you know what you're saying and what it means. This piece of crap knows 100% that word is and has been used as a slang towards a Jewish person. No one is reaching you, piece of crap. They're trying to tell you it's wrong, and these hateful slurs come out of your mouth, and you have to explain. Wiki says it's fine? Piece of crap. Here is a great article explaining the anti-Semitism associated with goblins. And in my opinion, Foodie Beauty, if you're telling people it's Islamophobic to call Salah salad, then perhaps you have the same respect for others. Just saying. The anti-Semitic history of goblins. With goblins often making the news thanks to a certain children's fantasy series, let's dive into their dubious origins. Over the last year, one of pop culture's favorite topics has been goblins. Yes, you read that correctly, goblins. In early 2022, comedian Jon Stewart went viral for rehashing the decades-old question, are the goblins from Harry Potter anti-Semitic? On his podcast. Then he went viral again for pushing back against media coverage of his podcast segment, stating that he did not say the Gringotts Goblins or J.K. Rowling are anti-Semitic and the conversation was merely lighthearted. Okay, John. Then again, goblins made the news in early 2023 when a new Harry Potter video game called Hogwarts Legacy debuted. Though J.K. Rowling had nothing to do with the creation of the game, it has been rightfully criticized for its terribly thought out transgender character and the fact that the main narrative is centered on a goblin rebellion in Wizarding World during the 1890s. Throughout the conversations, many have pointed to the fact that it's not just the goblins in Harry Potter that lean on anti-Semitic tropes, but an issue with the way goblins have been coded throughout history, especially in folklore and literature. So, are goblins anti-Semitic? Ask and you shall receive. Hey Alma pals and pop culture aficionados alike, from the site that brought you an anti-Semitic history of witches and an anti-Semitic history of vampires, it is unfortunately time to bring you a brief explanation of the anti-Semitic history of goblins. Let's go! First of all, what actually are goblins? According to Merriam-Webster Dictionary, a goblin is an ugly or grotesque sprite that is usually mischievous and sometimes evil and malicious. Though there are goblin-like creatures across cultural folklore, the term goblin comes from Europe, with the etymology of the word coming from the Anglo-Norman gobelin or Old French gobelin and goblin lore dating back to the 14th century. There is no uniform consensus towards Western culture as to what defines a goblin. But on a basic level, goblins were used as a term by medieval peoples to describe a specific species of fairy that is small, thieving, sometimes beast-like and shape-shifting, and either commits pranks or is more murderous. At the same time, they also used goblin as an umbrella term for fairy tale creatures like the German kobold, Welsh Kobino, redcaps, knockers, you'll want to remember this one, trolls, and so on. Okay, great. And this relates to Jews how? At the same time that goblin folklore was emerging in medieval Europe, common anti-Semitic stereotypes and myths like blood libel, deicide, Jews' association with money, and what Jews look like were also beginning to form. Beyond the violence and displacement this would cause for European Jewish communities in the Middle Ages, anti-Semitism also had the effect of spawning art, as laid out by Deborah Higgs Strickland in Saracens, Demons, and Jews Making Monsters in Medieval Art. By the 12th century, the stereotypical Jewish look was established. In primarily woodcuts and drawings, Jews were often portrayed as having an oversized and crooked nose and either appeared to be demon-like or consorting with the devil himself. This was done with the aim of making Jews easily identifiable, as well as seemingly as ugly, grotesque, subhuman, and evil, so Christians would not want to associate with them. For example, here is a Judensaw, literally translating to Jews' saw. Judensaw is a medieval German genre of art which depicts Jews committing obscene acts with pigs. Wood print from around 1470. This is the photo, and it looks more like a wild boar than an actual pig. Now compare that anti-Semitic image, this Dutch etching of a man speaking with devils in the form of animals, goblins, and hobgoblins from 1862. And this is clearly, it's easier to spot the demons as compared to the so-called goblins. Caption says, conversation of a Lapiander with the Dujivel and his, I can't read that word, title on object. Jan Leukien mentioned on object. Amsterdam, year 1682. Photo by Sepia Times Universal Images Group via Getty Images. Or the sketch of hobgoblins by Francisco de Goya from around 1799. Now that's obvious. Los Caprichos, número 49, Hobgoblins by Francisco Goya. Photo by Barney Burstein Corbis via Getty Images. Or the scene of a Charles Dickens 19th century story, The Goblins Who Stole a Sexton. I think this image was meant to scare people. A goblin is a legendary evil or mischievous creature, a grotesquely evil or evil-like phantom. Photo by Universal History Archive, UIG, Getty Images. Though the latter illustrations are from a later period and the comparison is not one-to-one, my point is that throughout history, European artists have depicted both Jews and goblins as being ugly, grotesque, and monstrous. Did anti-Semitism directly affect the creation of goblins? Yes and no. I haven't come across historical evidence which directly states that goblin folklore was influenced by medieval anti-Semitism or perceptions of Jews or vice versa. Except, of course, in the case of knockers. In the folklore of Cornwall and Devon in England, knockers, also known as knackers or tommyknockers, are goblin or gnome-like creatures who live underground in mines and are essentially harmless. They are also apparently the ghosts of dead Jews. In 1851, Arthur Charles Kingsley described knockers in his novel Yeast by writing, "They are the ghosts, the miners hold, of the old Jews, sir, that crucified our Lord, and were sent for slaves by the Roman emperors to work the mines. And we find their old smelting houses, which we call Jews' houses, and their blocks of tin, at the bottom of great bogs, which we call Jews' tin." Additionally, according to Oxford reference, knockers cannot stand the sight of the cross. Also, this interpretation of what they look like, a tweet from Bevan Thomas. Knockers, the Cornish mine goblins, are the most blue-collar fairies imaginable. The working-class miners who are appeased to offerings of meat pies. Hashtag fairy, hashtag goblin. Image by Mark Potts. And this is the image attached. So, in summary, knockers are subhuman creatures with Jewish origins that perpetuate the myth that Jews killed Jesus. So, are goblins anti Semitic or not? Knockers are certainly anti Semitic, and though I am not a historian, I do think goblins, as a whole, do seem to have dubious origins. But whether goblins in contemporary culture are anti Semitic, in my opinion, depends on context. Looking towards the most prominent example of this, the Gringotts goblins from Harry Potter are very clearly rooted in anti Semitic stereotypes, regardless of whether that was J.K. Rowling's intent or not. As literary agent Connor Goldsmith told Hey Alma in 2019, Rowling's goblins are nakedly anti Semitic caricatures, a race of gnarled, hook nosed misers obsessed with gold who believe they own everything they ever produce and wizards who purchase things only rent from them. They appear to run the entire wizarding economy and trust no one but their own kind. It suggested that secret cabals of goblins work to undermine the wizard government. This new Hogwarts Legacy video game, which once again J.K. Rowling did not play a part in creating, only reinforces the caricature. For players, the main thrust of the game is to help put down a goblin rebellion in 1890, which is being led by a goblin named Ranrock. According to GameRant, here's what Ranrock's goal is. The main scheme of the primary antagonist is to kidnap the player character and harvest their blood for a spell that will wipe out his enemies while aligned with a number of dark wizards. Harvesting the blood of a teenage, essentially a child, wizard sounds a whole lot like blood libel to me. This caricature is then heightened by other details in the game. For example, this goblin artifact in the game bears a striking resemblance to a shofar. And this is the artifact. Thanks for posting. I had no idea the meaning behind the word. No problem. I'm always open to being taught to new things. Chantal's viewpoint has always been that it's okay for her to be racist or disrespectful when it's someone she doesn't like. It's not okay to call Salah salad because she loves him. But it's okay to call Nad's camel because he was mean to her. Yep, I'm astounded by the amount of people who don't know this. Words have different contexts to different demographics. Using goblin as a slur for Jewish people seems to be a European thing. When the J.K. Rowling goblin was big news, my classmates and family had no clue. To us, a goblin had only ever been a creature from folklore. I totally agree. At least for us, it's the dictionary on the devices that keep changing salat to salad for me anyway. I loathe racially charged words, most of all the N word, the K word, and other various cruel Asian references. Throwing the word Islamophobic around like both of them do is, in my opinion, one of the worst features, and extremely selfish when people are actually faced with this on a daily. She knows what she's doing, just like when she called her sister the R word. Vile being. Thank you. Someone needs to sit her down and explain this to her very slowly using very simple words so she understands.